Resuming debate, the honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And just as I begin, I would note that I'm sharing my time with my friend and colleague, the honourable member from Brantford Brant. I'll be splitting my time. Madam Speaker, I find it fascinating that the member that just finished his speech from the NDP claimed to not understand the context for a question that was very direct, whether or not that member and the NDP would support a motion of non-confidence. To put the line in the sand, or the red line, I believe is what they called it at the previous NDP convention, where members of the NDP were not very happy, party members of the NDP were not happy with their leader and the direction that they were going when it comes to propping up the Liberal government and the scandal and corruption, the waste, the mismanagement that is happening. And yet that member, when given a very clear opportunity to put on the record that he would vote non-confidence, he refused to do so. And Madam Speaker, the reason why this fits so clearly into the debate here, and I know that my colleagues across the way certainly don't like, especially with the how by-elections certainly don't seem to be their strength as of late, they seem to be terrified of hearing what Canadians have to say. They seem to be terrified of hearing that there is a desire for things like accountability. And that is the crux of the issue that we are discussing here today. So when the NDP, with great bravado, the leader of the NDP, said he was tearing up the confidence and supply agreement, that coalition agreement that has defined the last 2 years of corruption that they've supported, yet when asked to put his money where his mouth is, he refused. And that member, likewise, just as weak and cowardly as his leader. Now, we have before us GC strategies.
Point of order, the honourable member for Windsor West.
I will not sit here and be told I'm a coward. And I think that's unparliamentary. I'd ask the member to retract that, to actually call me a coward in this chamber when I have fought with my constituents to get representation for Windsor West to speak what I feel and what they believe in this chamber, and not to be bullied by that member. I will not take it here in the chamber. I won't take it back behind closed doors. I am not a coward. I have been accountable. And what he is raising is not even germane to their actual motion they have put. And so to that member, I am not a coward. And if he wants to test that, that's fine here in the chamber, but I think it's unparliamentary to call any member here in the chamber a coward.
On the point of order, the honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I had said his actions, like those of his leader, are weak and cowardly. He can interpret that as he wishes.
Again, I would just remind members that to be very careful on the words that they use. If it does cause disorder in the House, they shouldn't be using those words. I didn't hear the whole sentence that the honourable member had used, aside from what he's just told me. We will review the Hansard, and we'll come back to the House as necessary. The honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Now back to the speech where I was talking about Liberal corruption, and in particular how over the course of the last number of years we have seen a unprecedented level of corruption take place. And that is no more true than in the case of GC strategies. And that this report from OGO, how specifically it talks about the need for the basic level of accountability. In fact, what this motion does is it takes the politics out of it by asking the Auditor General to step in and do a performance audit on GC strategies. Most notably, and it's been mentioned in the discussions that have happened thus far this morning, Madam Speaker, that this two-person firm named GC Strategies not because it's associated with the Government of Canada, but because they want that perception in order to be able to manipulate the process in order to get these contracts. And where the ArriveCan specifically, what was originally budgeted as $80,000, it ended up ballooning to a cost that we don't even know what the final number is, other than it's probably north of 60 million. That is a level of corruption that is astonishing and that Canadians are demanding answers for. And what is so frustrating is that I hear from my constituents on a regular basis. I hear from Canadians from coast to coast that there is a level of frustration and an erosion of trust that has taken place in these institutions that normally, historically, we could have been able to trust. You know, there was a very poignant statement that was made to me by somebody that didn't consider themselves that political. They didn't really have, you know, a particular party that they championed. They were just a regular Canadian. And what they had shared with me is that we used to be a country where if you didn't like the guy in charge, you could still respect the office to which they held. And unfortunately, we've come to the point where the actions of that Prime Minister and those Liberals supported by the NDP, including a refusal to commit to put their foot down and not just do press stunts to actually oppose the agenda that they still support. And what we see in this country is that there has been an erosion of trust in our institutions. And the fact that, like the previous member had mentioned, this could have been done in-house for significantly less. It could have had the basic level of accountability through the process. And the Liberals are saying, well, yeah, we might have made mistakes, but, you know, let's just move on. Well, I'm sorry, Madam Speaker. $60 million spent, and the close to $100 million that went to GC Strategies with various contracts that showcase the corruption and the scandal at a time when Canadians are going hungry. Food banks are seeing record usage. We are seeing a level of an erosion of trust because Canadians look at how the friends of the Liberal Party are getting rich while they're being stripped of everything. And Madam Speaker, that fact, and I know that is the case from across this country, and it is so regrettable that the NDP, when given the opportunity, refuse to take a stand. And I'll let Canadians judge that for what it is. Madam Speaker, we will now have, I believe, a vote after question period on this issue, asking the Auditor General to take a look, to dig into the details of $100 million. And I'd like to, if I could, just for a second, to remind all members of this place that whenever the government has a dollar, whether it's the salaries that we earn as parliamentarians, whether it's the dollars that go to pay for the services that public servants provide, whether it's the dollars that are paid out in benefits, whether it is things like our military, RCMP, and of course you could go down to the other levels of government. At the core of every dollar that government has is the fact, and this is a fact, and I would hope that this defines the respect that needs to be shown for the dollars that government has, is it's not government's money. It is the money of taxpayers, hard-working Canadians that pay a percentage of their income, a percentage of the things they buy, whatever the case is, the various taxes that exist. They pay part of that goes into government coffers. Those are hard-earned dollars. The sweat, the work, the blood of so many Canadians go to earn those dollars, and it is bewildering how little respect those Canadians are shown because it is Canadians' money. So when we talk about a two-person firm getting $100 million, most of which was in sole source contracts, friends of the Liberal Party that wine and dine Liberal staffers and Liberal elites, it is astonishing that the arrogance to which that government and the other parties that support them approach this lack of accountability. So we have the work that the OGO committee has done, and I know my colleagues, including an Alberta colleague who chairs that, they've done a tremendous amount of work exposing some of this corruption, the need for accountability. And in the case of the 13th report of the Standing Committee on Government Operations and Estimates, often referred to as the mighty OGO, there is a simple request to call in the auditor, to call in the Auditor General, the nonpartisan auditor that can look at the books. So, Madam Speaker, I would suggest that in a country like Canada, that shouldn't be controversial. And it is so regrettable that opposing corruption has become something that the Liberals try to make and turn into controversy. Well, Madam Speaker, I stand here as a representative of about 110,000 people, over 53,000 square kilometers in beautiful East Central Alberta. Proud to stand up for accountability for the people that I represent and the hard-earned dollars that they send to Ottawa to steward that with the most basic level of accountability that them and all Canadians deserve.
The Honourable Government Deputy House Leader.
Questions?
Yes, I did, and I already recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, you know, the member talked about Canadians not trusting their government and Canadians having concern over being able to trust institutions. But I'm wondering how much of a role he believes that he plays in that. Because he comes in here and he talks about corruption and this government's being corrupt and they're just filling the pockets of their insiders. And he talks about GC Strategies. But meanwhile, GC Strategies, Madam Speaker, used to operate under the company name Cordell. And they operated under that company name when the Conservatives were in government. So for him to suggest that these are some kind of Liberal insiders is just completely false. Anybody who says that is lying because it's not true. So I'm wondering if the member can tell this House what role he plays in bringing forward these ideas and in misinformation and informing Canadians to purposely pit them against the institutions that he said a constituent was raised a concern with him about.
That's a good point.
The Honourable Member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Well, thank you, Madam Speaker. I think it has become increasingly clear across this country that Canadians are sick and tired of those Liberals. And
I want to remind the Honourable Member who is yelling out her comments that if she wishes that if she wishes to participate in the debate, she should wait till questions and comments. The Honourable Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. So for that member to somehow suggest that calling for accountability is anything other than the very basic job that a parliamentarian or a parliament should do, exposes to all Canadians the problem that exists within that party. Madam Speaker, Canada deserves better than the corruption that member supports.
Questions
and comments. The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Thank you, Madam Speaker. Now, the colleague brought up a number of important points, incredibly important points, especially with regards to accountability. The government does not take responsibility for its actions. It is not accountable. The state has responsibilities that it is delegating to the private sector. That's what occurred in the case of GC Strategies. It's a bit of a slippery slope. That's what we've been seeing recently. It's a slippery slope, especially in genome or genomic editing. The government wanted to make a policy, but the industry itself set up a registry to track developments, even though that should be the responsibility of the state. Would the colleague agree that poor choices can lead to further poor choices in the future? Would the colleague not agree that it is the responsibility of the state to protect the public?
Madam Speaker, I talk a lot about the need for good governance, and we see often examples from those Liberals that are the antithesis of that. And I would hope that that member and his party, I know that they're open to continuing this coalition-type arrangement that exists here. I would hope that that member will stand strongly against supporting the corruption that we see across the way. But the very base of all of this is the fact that over the last 10 or so years, and consultants have been used in government and for as long as government has existed. But the proliferation of that under these Liberals, $20 billion in consultants, Madam Speaker, that has been spent. That's not resulting in good policy. It's not resulting in benefits or services being offered to Canadians, Madam Speaker. We need that basic level of accountability, and under these Liberals, they simply refuse it.
Questions and comments? We have time for a brief question. The honourable member for Sandwich Gulf Islands.
Honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot. Look, this is a really critical issue. I'll support the motion. I want to make it very clear, though, that I don't think there's evidence for one of his comments, which was that Christian Firth, who I think should be ashamed, I didn't hear any evidence that he was whining and dining Liberal insiders. He was whining and dining whatever person within the bureaucratic chain of command, and I didn't hear anything about party affiliations. I wonder if he had.
A brief answer, the honourable member for Battle River Crowfoot.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I know it was certainly a poignant moment during the historic moment when Christian Firth was called to the bar, and he refused to acknowledge any shame for the abuse of tax dollars. And Madam Speaker, I think that to her point, we have seen that there has been a breakdown of the processes that are supposed to ensure accountability when it comes to all aspects of how government is contracted. And it seems like the Liberals will move heaven and earth to benefit their friends, but they refuse to hold on to the basic level of accountability that Canadians expect.